God kveld og hjertelig velkommen til denne livesendingen fra oss i Bibelen på et år. Vi har Bibelen på et år fordi vi ønsker å hjelpe hverandre til gode rytmer og vaner med det å leve i Bibelen. Og fordi vi tror at det er en verdi i å få lese hele Bibelen, få tak i hele fortellingen. Og hver dag så legger vi ut tekster for dagen og noen korte refleksjoner. Og så samtaler vi i fellesskap og skriver i gruppa om hva vi får ut av tekstene, hvilke spørsmål vi får til de, og forsøker å være et fellesskap som hjelper hverandre til å lese Bibelen på en meningsfull måte. Og så er planen, fordi det kan jo dukke opp ting underveis som krever litt mer samtale og kanskje litt mer refleksjon enn det vi får i de daglige tingene, og derfor er planen å kjøre noen sånne livesendinger som vi gjør nå innimellom, for rett og slett å gi litt mer ressurs til de av dere som ønsker å få tak i litt mer av dette med bibellesninger og en del av de tingene vi møter. Og i kveld så begynner vi, og vi skal begynne rett og slett med å gripe fatt i en ressurs som vi har stor glede av å bruke på vandringen vår gjennom Bibelen på et år, nemlig Bible Project og deres fantastiske videoer som hjelper oss til å forstå bøkene vi leser, og til å få oversikt, og til å se noe av den store rammen i fortellingene. Og i fjor når vi leste gjennom Bibelen på et år, så var de videoene til stor hjelp. I år så bruker vi det igjen. Og derfor så har vi rett og slett fått med oss Mike McDonald, som er Global Manager for Bible Project, til å snakke litt om det de gjør, om deres tilnærming til bibeltekstene, om hvordan vi kan bruke de ressursene best mulig. Det er sånn at Mike, han sitter i Portland i USA, han er fra USA og må nødvendigvis snakke engelsk, så til du som ikke er så glad i engelsk, så beklager jeg at denne sendingen i kveld er på engelsk. Mange av de som kommer fremover vil være på norsk, men jeg håper allikevel at så mange som mulig kan ha glede av sendingen i kveld. Og så, litt senere, så skal vi også få med oss Joakim Skavern og høre litt om hva som skjer med Bible Project på norsk. Så, nå skal vi få ta imot Mike McDonald. Jeg skal ta han inn i studio her, og så skal vi få bli litt bedre kjent med han. Mike, welcome to this live stream in Bibelen på et år. So good to have you here.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. It's such an honor. It's such an honor.
And so just so people can get to know you a little bit, could you just tell us where are you right now, a little bit about yourself and what you're doing?
Yeah. So I'm in Portland, Oregon, which is just kind of north of California, south of Washington in the United States. It's where our Bible Project head office is. It's where Bible Project started, was out here in Portland. It is incredibly sunny right now, but this is very rare. It's normally pouring rain for like 5 months of the year. So we're in a very rainy spot, and this is home. This is where the majority of the staff, at least on the US side, are here in Portland, although we do have folks kind of all over the US and all over the world localizing our content, similar to our team in Norway.
And so you're, as I understand it, you're the global manager of Bible Projects. Tell me a little bit, how long have you been with Bible Project, and what connected you with this work in the first place?
Sure, yeah. So I've been on staff for the last 3 years, but I've been a part of the project since the beginning. John and Tim, the two founders, were friends of mine from before their kind of Bible Project life. John had a studio that was making explainer videos, and Tim was doing Bible teaching, and they're both from Portland as well. So we had met and interacted. When Bible Project first started coming out with videos, I was doing a lot of global work, and so I would bring the videos with me to places like Uganda and Iraq and Afghanistan and Somalia and all over the world as just great resources to help discipleship and to help with people in these places understanding the Bible. And so I was using the content in that way. And as Bible Project grew and they got to a place where they wanted to start doing videos in other languages, they asked me to come on and help be a part of that and help build out some of the strategic relationships we have around the world. And just helping people. I mean, our stuff is free, so it's not a sales thing or like an exchange. It's just how do we help people experience the Bible as a unified story that leads to Jesus. And so, yeah, I don't know. That probably answers. I've been a part of it since the beginning, on staff for 3 years. And as you said, I oversee the global team. We've got 58 languages that we're currently localizing our content into. Similar to the way that we're doing it in Norwegian, we're doing that also in Chinese, Brazilian, Portuguese, Afrikaans, Arabic, etc. And so we have teams around the world, and so I oversee a team here in Portland that manages all of those kind of those teams. And then our strategic relationships team, I have people around so Brazilian, Portuguese, I have somebody down there in Brazil, someone in Europe and France, someone in Germany, someone in Latin America, that are building relationships with churches and organizations to better serve them with our content.
That's amazing. A lot of languages, and as you say, all your resources for free. So really blessing a lot of people to experience the Bible. Here in Norway, this is our second year that we have set out to invite people into a community on a Facebook platform to read all of the Bible together in 1 year. We did it last year. We had probably around 1,500 to 2,000 people coming with us. And it's the same happening this year. And in this journey through the whole Bible, we really have experienced your videos as a great resource. Some things we read in this year are really accessible and easy to find things to be edified by, and other things are harder and
Totally.
kind of you have to wrestle more with it, and then to have this resource of your videos has really helped many of us to get a more grip on what is this book about? Why are we reading this text? If everything is in the Bible for a reason, then why are this there? And so perhaps you could give us a little bit of background. How would you describe Bible Project's approach to the Bible? What is it you do when you dive into these books and texts and create these resources?
Yeah. I mean, probably something that I don't know if it's unique, but it is our approach is one thing you'll notice is that we're big on context. And so we don't do a lot of like just taking a verse and expounding on it. We want to really understand that a certain verse is wrapped up in a movement. The Bible didn't have chapters and verses. It really only until a few hundred years ago. It was a newer thing so that we could actually find the chapters and find the verses for ourselves. But the original scrolls, the original letters, those didn't have chapters and verses. And so they were really meant to be experienced as a whole movement. These letters in the New Testament, for instance, would be read, from start to finish, not just a little chunk here or a little chunk there with a title. And so we're really big on context, which means we want to understand where does this thing that we're trying to understand end up in the movement. And then inside that movement, where does it end up in the entire narrative of the Bible, from Genesis all the way through? And so you'll notice in a lot of our videos or in our podcasts or anything, we're constantly going back to Genesis because we believe that that's where so many of the intentions of God, the intentions of, what it means to be human began and start, and they create this framework for us to understand the entire narrative. And so when we're reading things in Galatians, it's often we go back to Genesis so that we can understand what Paul was writing to the Galatians, or if he was writing something to the Ephesians. And so context is huge for us. So you'll see us always wrapping into the larger narrative, and it's all about the Bible. We believe that the Bible interprets itself, and so we will use the Bible to interpret the Bible. So if we're having a hard time understanding a story or a specific thing, we look at it again in the context of the scriptures, not necessarily outside of that. And so we're looking for those themes and those movements and those things that happen throughout the entire narrative of the scriptures.
Yeah, and I've noticed you very often end up all the way back to Genesis 1, 2, and 3. Why is that?
Yeah.
Why do you always go back to the beginning?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like if I don't know, if you watch like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter or any narrative, if you started in like the 7th movie, you wouldn't understand the whole story of, like, you know, who these people were, what their mission was, what the initial intent of their journey was. And so for us, everything starts back at God's initial intent and journey for humankind, which was to be made in his image and to steward and take care of, you know, the earth and the, like, all these things. And so when we talk about, like, for instance, in Revelation, I don't think we can understand the New Jerusalem until we understand the garden. We can't understand what this is unless we understand the way that God, you know, started and intended. And we want to keep that reminder of that image bearers of God, and that we are, you know, made to represent who he is in the earth. And we lose sight of that if we're always just, you know, honing in on little stories about David or little stories about Jonah. We don't understand it unless we go back to the garden and go, how does this tie in to the larger narrative of who we are, how we're built in the Imago Dei, and what that means as we interact with others and with God. So yeah, we're always going back to that, because I think it reminds us of the why, not the how, but the why. Why are we doing what we do?
I'm just curious, Mike, as you've been a part of this journey since the beginning, what has being a part of Bible Project meant for you personally in terms of your relationship, your understanding of the Bible?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, like anybody, I'm a fan as well as someone who's on staff, in the sense that, like, I consume the materials. It helps me with my own understanding of the biblical, you know, context and world. It's a really weird book. It is a hard book to understand. There are so many authors over, you know, thousands of years writing content. So it makes sense that it's not easy to just understand in today's day and age. So to have, you know, people like Tim and other scholars be able to help unpack that, it allows me to experience the Bible as this just amazing, just beautiful narrative that, again, would be very difficult on my own to just, you know, be able to grasp. And not all of us have the time or the ability to go to seminary and to learn Hebrew like Tim did, or learn Greek. I don't know Hebrew, I don't know Greek, but I can experience the depth of their knowledge through these videos that helps tie in all of that, and specifically how it ties to Jesus. You know, for me, I'm a follower of Jesus. That's why I'm reading this book and want to give my life to understanding it, so that I can go out into the world and do the things that I'm supposed to do. And you know, as a follower of Jesus, it's super important to understand how this whole narrative actually points to Jesus. When I first started following Jesus, the Old Testament, even just the name, it's like, it's old. I don't need to go there. I don't need to read. I didn't understand that I should even be approaching it. I would just stay in the New Testament and stay around Jesus, not understanding that, again, you can't understand the importance of Jesus and the church if you don't understand the entire narrative of God's rescue and heart for us from the very beginning. And so for my own walk, it's been incredible. You know, I now feel comfortable stepping into some of these stories that, you know, were so scary or weird or I was angry with. I can step into them with a little bit more understanding, and it keeps adding to the larger narrative of, you know, why it is that I believe what I believe. So yeah, it's been, you know, I'm a fan. I happen to work here too, but first and foremost, you know, and I'm not a fan of, what's interesting is I'm thankful for the Bible Project, but I'm a fan of the Bible. Like, that's really, like, Bible Project has helped me become even more of a fan of the Bible. Not Bible Project, but the actual scripture. And that I love too. I'm very thankful for that.
And I mean, you say you're translating this to 58 languages, and I could imagine you get some quite a bit of feedback on what these videos and resources means. Do you have some examples, some stories, or some things that really have moved you in terms of what the Bible has done to people, as this has helped open the book up to them?
Yeah, you know, yes, we get them every week, so I just have the ones that are like from this last week, probably fresh in my mind. But there were a few this last week. One we have in Myanmar, in Burma, which is a very closed country. It was closed for, you know, over 50 years. It opened back up again for a few years, but it's closed again right now. There are very few Bible resources available in their context. And so, I'd traveled over there. I'd been a part of helping start some Bible colleges, but they only have like 3 or 4 textbooks to share between all their students. So the students can only learn when they're actually in the class and they're copying down the textbooks, and they're in English. They're not even in their native language because there are no biblical, resources available in Burmese. And so we're making all of our videos in Burmese. They're being illustrated and animated by Burmese people. It's done in their context. It's all of that. And they're able to share that in their schools, on their devices and everything else, to be able to take home. And so we've got some stories of students that are able for the first time to take these resources into their home and then share it with their families. And it's the first time their families are experiencing, resources that help them actually open up the Bible. And so that's in Myanmar. We've got another one in the northern part of Iraq and Kurdistan. There's been a ton of Yazidi refugees. They speak Arabic that have come in because of the conflict with ISIS over the last 10 years. And so they're coming into this context in Kurdistan, and we have Kurdish believers that are able to share Arabic resources with these Yazidi people in the refugee camps, and they're having these underground Bible studies in the camp that are just opening up the scriptures. And so, yeah, we've got it's just so neat to see in their own mother tongue the ability to actually watch. And many of these people can't read, and so they, even if they had a book in their context, they can't necessarily read. So they're watching and hearing the stories of Jesus and experiencing that for the first time. It's humbling. I pinch myself every week that I get to keep doing this work, because it is helping and changing people's lives around the world.
And do you even get stories about people coming to faith as they get this help with interacting the Bible?
We totally do. We've actually had many, because these videos are done in a way that are they're very open. Like they're trying to explain the Bible. They're not necessarily evangelistic in the sense of like the Romans road, like, hey, do this, pray this prayer, you're a sinner, like what the church often does. We're just making videos to help explain the Bible. And that makes them very open for Muslims, for Buddhists, for Hindu, that maybe have heard of the Bible. They're interested in why so many people read it or are a part of it, but there's usually nowhere for them to go to actually understand what it's about. And so we have many Muslims that have actually watched our videos and come to faith through them, which has been great. I got another email this morning. We have our videos in an app that are in prisons here in America. So in our prison system, we have prisoners that are actually inmates that are able to watch these videos and are coming to faith. We had last year in this one app, we had just over 1,000 people come to faith in Jesus through watching the videos, because they can, they ask them questions like, do you want to accept Jesus? And this is what it would mean. So yeah, we definitely get those. And those are all just like, so amazing, so crazy.
Wow, that's amazing to hear. So encouraging. And actually, in our church here in Norway, we have focused specifically in this season on reaching out to Muslims, and to even hear you sharing these stories really moves me. So great to hear.
I love that.
One of the things I've found interesting, Jesus prays for us as Christians that we would be one, but we have a sad tendency to fight and to divide, and often with the Bible as the battleground. But Bible Project seems to work in so many different contexts, and contexts that often could end up fighting over the Bible seems to embrace what you're doing. Do you have any idea how? The Bible. When I see what's happening around you, I get this encouraging sense that perhaps the Bible could unify us instead of being a battleground for us. Do you have any thoughts on why this is happening?
I do believe that not only, our mission is, to help people experience the Bible as a unifying story that leads to Jesus. But we also believe that it is a unifying story for us, and it brings unity. And I think that for sure there are things that we can disagree about in the Bible, But I think there's more things that we can agree about as followers of Jesus and as the collective Big C church. And the moment we stop trying to convince people about our specific way of interpreting something, we can be unified. So what you'll notice with our videos is that we're straight up Bible. We don't take extra text or extra things or extra thoughts. We're just saying, in the time of Jesus, when he was saying these things, here's what it would have meant. Not necessarily what it means right now. We're constantly trying to do that. When Paul was speaking to the Galatians, here's the context in which he was speaking. It's interesting, like, while I do believe that the letter to the Galatians can be something for me in my own walk, I have to remember that it was written to a certain people at a certain time by a certain author connected with the Spirit. So if we don't understand that, then we can take things out of context. The book of Galatians wasn't written to me. Even though there's helpful teachings in there for me to learn from, it still wasn't written to Mike. It was written to the Galatians 2,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so that allows us to stay unified, because we're not starting to parse out some of that. And I think that's the important, there is diversity in the family of God. There is diversity in the followers of Jesus. And we are all going to meet Jesus face to face one day and realize we had some bad theology. Every single one of us. There is no way that any of us are going to meet Jesus and just had it all figured out. So if we can approach each other with that kind of humility to go, I know that I'm going to be wrong about certain things. What can we actually agree on, and what it means to bring people into the kingdom of God and to represent the love of Jesus? I mean, that's the stuff that's the real stuff. And so I think we're trying to highlight those things versus trying to get followers by being, dogmatic about a certain thing. We just don't go there.
Wow, that's so encouraging. I am so encouraged by the thought that the Bible, as I say, could unify us instead of separate us and make us a battle over different things. So yeah. I'm really thankful for the way you're helping us into that. We're obviously, as I mentioned earlier, in our walk through all of the Bible, there are some difficult books in there. Tomorrow we're starting on the book of Job, which obviously is a very rich book, a very important book, but also kind of challenging, with on many different levels. Everything from kind of the text in itself to, Satan is really, there's the dialogue between God and Satan. There's the questions around suffering. A bit later on, of course, we're coming to kind of Leviticus and those books, and kind of, wow, why, God, did you put all these laws in there for us to sit and read? And there's some really violent things as well. Is there things in Bible Project's approach to reading the Bible as a unified story that you would say could help us to make sense of these things that aren't as accessible for a Western Christian in 2022? Yeah.
I mean, we're getting there with Norwegian content, and primarily a lot of that's still in English. We're working our way through. We've done, a good chunk of the New Testament. We are starting to move into the Old soon. And then we'll start doing theme videos and so on. But so currently some of the resources that would be helpful for like Job and Leviticus and so on, we only have currently in English. Hopefully by next year, if you did this again, we would have a full, library in Norwegian. But we do have some videos that are very helpful in that context. The most helpful thing for me is to understand that the stories in the Bible, it does not necessarily, when there is evil or where there is things that are happening, it does not necessarily mean that God affirms those things. It means that they're part of our history. Like, they are a part of the history. It's being written as a historical account. And so, I always had a hard time, for instance, with David, and going like, gosh, David was a man after God's own heart, but he also totally gnarly stuff. He murdered this dude. He basically raped this other. I mean, it's intense stuff and language. And we have to remember that David was a human, a man that was, impacted with sin the same way that you and me are. And just because it's in the Bible doesn't mean it's affirmed by God as something that is good. It just means it's a part of the larger narrative of the rescue, of why we needed a rescue, a rescuer, and Jesus. So that's one. The second is that all these stories, again, are built into a larger narrative that starts way back at Genesis. So I think to understand Job and to understand Leviticus, we really need to understand this garden story, and we really need to understand, God's heart in continuing to rescue and redeem us. And then the third would be okay with being angry at certain texts. God is okay, I think. God knows us so deeply. He knows our minds and our hearts and what we're wrestling through. I constantly am writing in my margins, God, I hate this. I disagree with this. I don't understand this. I'm frustrated at this. Like, you're going to have to help me understand. Like, I've got a whole, almost like Psalms, like David crying out. I've got those written in my margins. And I remember when I felt like God freed me up to be able to be angry at certain stories and be angry at certain ways that he even reacted to things. And then that wasn't blasphemous. Like, it's okay to have all those human emotions. We were created with those. And I think God can hold all of that. I just think of a father going, I totally feel you. I understand why you would be mad at that. You don't have the whole story, and one day you will, but I will hold you in that place, and you're allowed to have those emotions. So I think when we approach the Bible, we've got to do it with authenticity. I think we've got to do it with all of our emotions, and that God is big enough to hold all of that in his hands.
Wow. Thank you for both giving the perspective of the larger story, but also this authentic, honest. We're free to speak openly about how we feel about the text, and perhaps that
David,
even puts us in a
better spot. David in his own, if
Yeah.
we read the Psalms, there's times, I think those are curse words in ancient Hebrew. I think he's like mad, and he's like, where are you? You've left me. There's intense language that the person that God has elevated as like a man after his own heart is also throwing up those kind of emotions. I think God loves that when it's our authentic self, like, I think he goes, there you are, like, there you are, Mike, there you are, Miguel. Like, I can handle that.
So we're soon going to bring in Joachim from the Norwegian team to hear a bit more about what's happening with Bible Project in Norwegian. But last questions in our conversation. Is there, I know you're constantly developing new things. I know there's come a new app recently and so on. Is there specific resources you would like to point us to that could be helpful in this coming year?
Yeah, again, this is always a balance of, like, again, there's English and Norwegian stuff. The Norwegian videos we have is our YouTube channel. You can also find them on our website, and Joachim will also be able to share, like, there might be other places on the biblical, all the different kind of ways to access our material. But we do have a new app that came out that really is meant to help you walk through from Genesis all the way through in these movements, and we'll keep putting out new movements throughout the year. It's going to take a few years to kind of build all those out, but it's depth work going with videos and some podcasts and some written stuff, and it's very all-inclusive, and you can kind of go in as deep as you want or as light as you want, but it's a great way to experience that. We also have all of our reading plans and different types of studies on the YouVersion Bible app. So you can go to YouVersion and you can actually look up the Norwegian plans that, we have a Luke Acts plan right now. That's a really good one. You were talking about reaching Muslims with your church context. We have a Luke Acts mini series that is wonderful for doing that in not only Norwegian, but in, again, 40 different languages. I think we've had it done already. Arabic being one of them. And it takes people through the book of Luke, so the whole gospel. So you get the whole gospel, who Jesus is, all of that. And then the book of Acts, what it means to be the church, what it means to be, followers of Jesus, filled with the Spirit, going out into the world and doing those things. And so it's a wonderful, like, 9-week kind of series that takes you through those books. That's a great resource. And yeah, hopefully we'll continue. We start with our videos. We usually produce about 100 videos in a language, and then we start moving into other theme videos, and then hopefully blogs and Bible studies. And the idea with Norwegian is that we're putting out those Bible studies. We're putting out those things that can be helpful for small groups. Like if you've got a small group or you're in your family and you want to do a Bible study together, hopefully we'll have those kind of resources. But our next probably year with the Norwegian project is to get through the whole New and Old Testament and about 20 theme videos and a few other things to kind of create some of those resources.
Great, thank you for sharing. And now I'm going to bring Joachim on. Good evening, Joachim.
Good evening.
So good to see you here. We will soon transition into Norwegian as we'll talk about the Norwegian part of Bible project. But while Mike is still on, you've been working on translating this and getting this into Norwegian. How has Meeting Bible project and these resources impacted you?
First of all, it has been a great privilege because we have seen the Christianity in Norway gather around this project from different congregations and denominations. So it's a lot of enthusiasm, and it's so great to see the Christianity stand together about this around this project. So that's a big blessing for me personally, and also these resources are very useful and a great help for me personally. And because I'm not that good in English, it has been a very important task for me to also get this in Norwegian, so it's easier for me to understand. And we have a big team, of course, with I think we're around 8 persons involved here in Norway, doing different stuff in producing these films. So I'm not the mastermind of the translation. We have a lot better resources on that, but we have contact with Portland regularly, and doing these things with a team here in Norway based in Oslo mostly, with illustrators, animators, and also translators. Some of them are also working in Wycliffe, so they're very familiar with translating the Bible. So it's a great team, and we feel the enthusiasm. And also when we talk about the project in these movies around in churches, when we meet friends and different colleagues, it's very known in Norway, and maybe the English version or the American version is at the moment more known than the Norwegian. So we have a job in front of us to make them known and used around in the churches, and also hopefully to see them being used in other places, as Mike mentioned, for example, like in schools or in prisons and so on. So now the next phase will start where we will have to use them, and that's the brilliant idea of your project, Egil. So that's why I think this is kind of a perfect way of using these resources in churches.
One thing that's really unique with Joachim and his whole team and the team that works on this is it's one of the only projects that we have that was birthed and funded by the actual country and the places. Many of these projects that we're working in are being funded through the US or through Canada, kind of finding funds to then make these projects happen. But the Norwegian team actually was fully funded by Norwegians, fully put together by them. I mean, the team was built on the ground there, obviously with some help from Portland, but very much driven by them in Norway. And it's really one of our favorite projects because of that, because it's got so much ownership and so much, care from that. It's not just a project that they're being paid to do, but it's actually something that's really in them. So we've only got a few of those. The German team is very similar to that. But there's something special about Norway. When I have the conversations about this as well, they get excited. Joachim and the entire team, Helene, who's not here, get excited about what would it look like to also make videos for other languages. And they're looking at even figuring out how do we fund, languages that aren't being done yet. And I just love the Norwegians' heart for the scriptures and getting this out, you know, to so many people. So it's a joy to work with them for sure.
So great to hear. I'm gonna ask Joachim a little bit more about what is actually available in Norwegian and what's coming this year, and we'll do that in Norwegian. So Mike, I'm gonna let you go. You don't have to sit and listen to a language you don't understand. But
yeah, I'd have like Google Translate up, just hoping to like get as much as possible.
Yeah.
But I don't think it would work.
No, so thank you so much for taking the time, and greet the team at Bible Project and say here in Norway, we're so thankful for what you're giving us and the help you're giving us in really diving deep into the Bible.
I will. Thank you so much, you two. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
All right.
Så Joachim, da kan vi gå over på norsk. Igjen, flott å ha deg. Deilig, ja. Igjen, flott å ha deg med. Det du sa noe om på engelsk at nå det liksom virkelig sving på å få Bible Project sine videoer på norsk. Nå kanskje noe av jobben å faktisk begynne å bruke de. Mange av oss har vent oss til å se de på engelsk, men flere enn vi kanskje vet om finnes på norsk, og jeg kommer til i løpet av tida som ligger foran å komme på norsk. Kan ikke du si litt om hva som finnes tilgjengelig nå, og hva som kommer til å komme i den tida som ligger foran oss?
Ja, det kommer masse filmer. Nå ligger det vel 15 stykk ute, pluss en serie vi lagde før dette som var på 9 stykk. Vi skal totalt, og det som har blitt fundet da i Norge, som rause donorer har gitt til, det jo da 73 filmer i en serie som heter Les Bibelen, eller Read Scripture i Porten. Og der har vi nå publisert 15 filmer, og det ligger masse i pipeline, klart å bli publisert hver uke. Så jeg tror nå fremover så vil det ukentlig komme nye filmer på da YouTube-kanalen. Jeg ser også du har lagt ut en nettside her nå, som kom opp i chatten. Men du finner nå også på YouTube, hvis du bare søker Bible Project norsk, så kommer du inn på den kanalen. Og der vil det hver uke komme nye filmer, så trykk bare sånn abonner på den, så får du ofte beskjed om at det har kommet en ny film, men det kommer sånn stort sett hver mandag. Så vi har jo da produsert ganske mange, har cirka i underkant av 50 filmer igjen som vi produserer fortløpende. Så det jo et svært prosjekt da, fordi egentlig så må du lage hele filmen på nytt, på mange måter. Du har utgangspunktet som har blitt laget i USA, men ved at hele animasjonen basert på tekst, så må vi jo illustrere den teksten på nytt. Så det som står da i den amerikanske versjonen med acts, skal jo da bli apostlenes gjerninger. Og så skal jo det da passe inn i denne filmen, og apostlenes gjerninger mye lenger, og så skal det se likt ut, sånn stilistisk sett. Så det ender med at du må egentlig tegne hele plakaten på nytt og animere. Så det vi gjør at vi har fått et grunnlag fra amerikanerne, og så har vi det som kalles language advisor, altså en språkkonsulent som amerikanerne betaler, som sitter da og kontrollerer at det vi gjør med vårt oversetterteam, det holder god kvalitet, og at ikke vi lurer amerikanerne og later som at dette en bra oversettelse, og så har de ikke noen måte å kontrollere det på. Men da går han inn og på en måte sjekker alt det vi gjør da. Så det et svært team da, som gjør dette her, og vi synes det utrolig gøy å holde på med. Det jo veldig meningsfullt, fordi som jeg sa litt flåsete i starten, så noe av min drivkraft til å få det på norsk fordi jeg litt dårlig i engelsk. Og jeg sikkert eller jeg nok ikke noe så mye verre enn gjennomsnittet, men ved at filmene går såpass raskt, og når det en bibelsk terminologi, ikke sant, så det andre ord enn det man kanskje sånn vant med fra film og TV. Så det liksom ikke så ofte du hører Leviticus, liksom, og så skal du skjønne at det tredje Mosebok. Men det at du får dette på norsk, så det liksom bare en helt vanvittig hjelp da, til å henge med. Så selv om du god eller dårlig på engelsk fra før av, så det bare så deilig å få det på sitt eget språk. Så vi tror at dette kommer til å bli en veldig stor og rik velsignelse da, for kanskje kristenheten spesielt, ved at dette jo på en måte undervisningsfilmer, men også at det nå brer ut. Vi hørte jo Mike fortelle om det mennesker som kommer til å tro gjennom disse filmene og sånn. Så jeg tror absolutt også det har en misjon på den måten, men først og fremst at kristne kan fordype seg da i skriften, skjønne mer og også se sammenheng da. Det deilig å kunne liksom bare få det overblikket, og det jo det mange av filmene heter, overblikk. Fordi du trenger liksom å se helheten, og ikke bare enkeltversene, og plukke litt ut, men det hjelper deg til å liksom få hele historien, da, som de er veldig opptatt av i USA.
Så bra. Og jeg tenker at vi som ser dette, enten nå live eller i opptak senere, må ta med oss også oppfordringer til å spre de norske videoene, sånn at de blir kjent. Litt sånn nysgjerrighet, jeg har ikke sjekket det med deg på forhånd, men har dere begynt å få inn noen feedback eller historier om hva de norske videoene har fått bety så langt?
Ja, men det er stort sett fra kristenheten selv som jeg har fått høre. Men det er flere sånne initiativ som dette her, hvor det håper å si, kirkeråd eller frikirkelighet, hvor det er folk som tar det i bruk og lager kursopplegg og tiltak rundt filmene, sprer de, eller om de har det i smågrupper, husfellesskap, viser det på søndager, viser det på kurs for studenter og ungdomskvelder og det som måtte være da. Så vi vet at de blir brukt mye. Og det er litt sånn jeg utfordrer også kirkene på da, for at mange ganger så er vi gode til å lansere noe. Man har kommet med en lovsang-CD, man har sluppet en ny EP, et eller annet, og så er det masse boost rundt den releasen, og så blir det litt borte etterpå, og så glemmer man liksom å holde det ved like. Og det er litt sånn vi kan se noen ganger med filmer vi slipper, at det kan være en veldig boost i det noe kommer, men så faller det fort da, ved at ikke folk bruker det, eller holder det oppe, deler det videre, fortsetter å ta i bruk ressursene. Så der utfordrer vi ofte nå kirker og menigheter til å gjøre dette her da, og aktivt spre og dele. Fordi dette er jo noe som har blitt sponset, betalt av kristne rundt omkring i landet. En fantastisk gave, og da er det kjempeviktig at sånne tiltak sånn som dere gjør nå da, at de blir brukt og de blir til velsignelse. For det er så viktig at disse når ut. Ikke først og fremst fordi at filmene, vi er opptatt av at vi skal få flest mulig visninger på filmene, men det er jo som Mike også sier, at det er først og fremst Bibelen. At vi vil jo at folk skal lese Bibelen, bli nysgjerrige og oppleve at den har en livsforvandlende kraft. Men da tror vi at disse filmene kan være en god ressurs og en hjelp da, inn i å forstå tekstene og Bibelen bedre.
Joakim, tusen takk for den jobben du og teamet gjør. Som du sier, det har vært et skikkelig sånn dugnadsprosjekt i Kristen-Norge å funde disse filmene, og vi skjønner av det du forteller at det er ikke akkurat bare å sette seg ned og oversette litt engelsk tekst, og så har du noen filmer. Det er en ganske massiv jobb, og det er et stort team som jobber med det, så takk for den jobben dere gjør. Jeg ser at tida begynner å bli sånn at det begynner å bli greit å runde av for i kveld, tror jeg. Er det noe du har lyst til å si til slutt, før vi takker for i kveld?
Jeg kan jo nevne det da, altså hun som egentlig skulle vært å snakke nå var jo fra Bibelselskapet, Helene Fagervik, og det er jo de som har den koordinerende parten. Så det finnes også ressurser inne på det som heter bibel.no, som Bibelselskapet drifter. Der får du også bibelleseplaner og litt flere ting. Der kan du også finne filmene. Og der er det en del ressurser jeg vil anbefale, og som er fint å bruke da. Så de blir jo det er den parten vi forholder oss mest til her i Norge. Det er de som har ansvaret når det også er innsamling av penger og sånn. Så de er liksom de som har det administrative ansvaret, og så lager vi filmene som et animasjonsselskap som heter Verdiverkstedet. Men så samarbeider vi jo tett da. Men jeg håper virkelig at dette fortsetter, og at det blir flere filmer, og at vi kan lage egne ting, og om det også kommer ting på eller jeg håper å si for yngre, at vi kan lage filmer som treffer enda yngre, om det er for barn og gjøre andre ting. Og da er det beste som kan skje nå at filmer blir brukt, og at vi ser at det her som kristenheten klarte å stå sammen om, at det var en så stor spredning som varmet mitt hjerte da, at det var en sånn bredt representert kirkesamfunn som var liksom med der, og sto rundt dette. Det håper vi kan bygge videre på, at vi kan ha dette felleskirkelig og stå sammen rundt ting, og fortsette med det også i fremtiden da. Av nye filmer, men at vi også kan stå rundt det sentrale og heie på hverandre.
Den oppfordringen tar vi med oss. Igjen, tusen takk for jobben dere gjør, og tusen takk til dere som ser på, enten dere var med nå live direkte, eller ser det i opptak. Om drøye 2 uker, tirsdag 8. februar, klokka 9, så skal vi ha med oss Joakim Magnus for en ny sånn her livesending. Snakke litt om bibelkveldene han har fått være med og sette opp i Oslo, og hva de har gjort med hans forhold til Bibelen, og snakke om andre sider av Bibelen. Men for nå i kveld så sier vi takk for nå. Husk å gå inn og søk Bible Project norsk på YouTube, og finn masse flotte ressurser der. Og takk skal du ha, Joakim. Ha en god kveld videre.
Takk for det. Ha det godt da.
Ha det.